With 2018 having come to a close and the new year now upon us, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we can expect in terms of new content for Overwatch in 2019. This is going to be a pretty important year for the game if Blizzard intends for it to continue going for years to come. So what exactly can we expect from them then over the next 12 months? In this video, I'm going to break down my predictions based a little bit on factual knowledge we know and a little bit on speculation to give a sort of timeline of what exactly I think we're going to see moving forward. This is Master Ian Gamer, and let's get into it. So I'm gonna break these predictions down by month, and first up we have January. In January we're gonna get a new assault map, otherwise known as 2CP, and along with it a new developer update which alludes to a bunch of upcoming content, but doesn't actually tell us anything specific. It's mainly gonna be Jeff talking about how there are big things to come, but we're gonna have to actually wait and see for ourselves to understand what he's really talking about. In this dev update, he's also gonna give a minor teaser for the 2019 Lunar New Year event, probably regarding a skin, and that event of course will start at the very end of January. Moving on to February, this is primarily going to be the Lunar New Year event. While it starts in late January, the majority of it will be taking place in February. However, the other major thing for this month will of course be Season 2 of Overwatch League. Overall, the second season will be less popular than the first, but still popular enough that people are going to enjoy it, and Blizzard overall will consider it to be a success. February will then end with teasers and the PTR release of Hero 30, who I will get onto now when I talk about March. Hero 30 will hit live servers in mid to late March, and they're for sure going to be either a new main support or a new main tank. If I had to decide on just one, I would say that it's probably going to be a new main support hero, and they're going to have some kind of profound unexpected kit that nobody saw coming, but ultimately everyone's going to love them and they're going to be pretty unanimously accepted as a great addition to the hero roster. Other than this though, not a whole lot is going to end up happening in March. April is when we first start to see things really pick up for the game. April will see the start of Archives 2019, which will feature a brand new PvE mission where you play as Talon members. Specifically, these members are probably going to be Doomfist, Sombra, Moira, and Widowmaker, going on some sort of Talon-based mission, possibly fighting against a faction such as Helix Security in an effort to hijack or steal something, or maybe even fighting against Overwatch agents. Despite the event being called Archives, this mission is actually going to be set much closer to present day, possibly only being a year or two prior to the current point in time. On top of that, there'll be a whole bunch of new story information introduced, thus giving the illusion that the game's story overall is going to pick up once again, but in actuality, we're going to see that it ends up going undeveloped just like last year until Archives 2020. There's also a good chance that we'll see the introduction of the in-game replay system at this point in time, which will be capitalizing off the hype and attention for the game that Archives generates. This replay system, as we saw with the Overwatch World Cup viewer, will allow you to rewatch previous games you recorded from various angles and perspectives. The more competitive player base will be extremely happy to have this addition, but the casuals will gripe a little bit because it's not something that they're really going to be using very much. Moving on to May, this is where we're going to see the next new map, and possibly like Rialto last year, it'll be one that's first introduced in the April Archives event and later joins the standard map roster in early May. The exact game mode type of this new map is going to be a little uncertain leading up to its reveal, but the one mode it almost certainly won't be is 2CP, given that the previous map will have been that mode. Then in late May, we see the return of Anniversary event, which will more or less be the same as it was last year, with the exception of having a bunch of new skins added and another season of competitive deathmatch. Moving on to June, this is going to be another really interesting month, as there aren't normally a whole ton of big Overwatch content reveals that happen at this point. However, Blizzard is going to take this opportunity to launch their multi-game Blizzard clan system, which we know for a fact is something that they're already working on. This was discussed quite a bit back at BlizzCon 2018, and their decision to make this clan system span across all their titles from Overwatch to World of Warcraft to Hearthstone is more than likely the reason we've seen it delayed so much from its original release date, which was late summer of 2018. This new clan system will allow players to group up and form their own team compositions in Overwatch, and there's likely also going to be some kind of minor cosmetic rewards you get for being in a clan. At the same time, we're also going to see some improvements to the LFG and endorsement systems, which will both be getting changes that reflect the addition of the clan system and are designed to make them work in the same environment. Again, the specific details of all this are are things that we can't really predict this far ahead, but given that we do know Blizzard is working on a clan system and will be introducing it at some point in time, the large empty window in June seems like the best opportunity for Blizzard to go through and implement it, as it will then benefit all their games for the preceding summer. June will then end with teasers and the PTR release of Hero 31. In July, Hero 31 will be added to live servers, and assuming that the Hero 30 is a main support, Hero 31 will be a new main tank who functions similarly to Reinhardt but without the use of barriers. Whatever this alternative ends up being, nobody will really see it coming, and the community will pretty quickly end up bandwagoning and accepting it as being either too overpowered or too weak, only to have that stigma shattered when the hero hits competitive and it turns out that they're actually really well balanced. Despite this though, players will still default to Reinhardt 99% of the time, and he'll remain a top pick. This takes us then to August, which will show us the return of summer games for the 4th time, and much to everyone's dismay, it will be more or less the same event we've had in years past. August is actually going to be perhaps one of the most crucial points in time for the game overall, as this is when we're going to first start to get the year 4 content, particularly regarding events. If the content released in 2019 prior to that year's Summer Games event isn't strong enough to boost up the community's morale, then the game will lose a dangerously large amount of players at the end of that summer, and even if Blizzard ends up introducing some great new mechanic or features later on after that, most of those players will not be returning. They will have given up on the game, and Blizzard is going to be in a bad spot with Overwatch. Personally, I think the first half of 2019 will be strong enough to keep enough players interested that we don't have to worry about the game dying anytime soon, or even about this mass exodus of players once they realize Summer Games is going to be the same thing for the 4th time. However, nonetheless, this is going to be a very important point for Blizzard to focus on and make sure that by the end of the summer, they have things in order and are keeping players satisfied. Additionally, the very end of August will see Gamescom, which will reveal a brand new map and animated short, the latter of which will somehow manage to once again not progress the story in any meaningful way, but will still be cool and people will enjoy rewatching it for years to come. Moving on to September, the new map from Gamescom will be released to live servers, and otherwise nothing very big will happen. In October, the 2019 Halloween Terror event will start, and like the Summer Games, it'll be more of the same we've seen from years past. It'll introduce a ton of new skins and the same old game modes, which are still enjoyable to come back to every now and again, but for the most part, people aren't going to be too excited for it. The second half of October will be filled with teasers for BlizzCon and Hero 32, which of course will be starting in November. At BlizzCon in early November, Hero 32 is going to be revealed as a new support hero. There's a very good chance that that hero will be Echo, but it's not necessarily guaranteed. Just like Gamescom in August, there will be another new animated short, which follows the same format of not progressing the story, but still being overall quite enjoyable. On top of that though, perhaps the single most exciting thing of the entire year regarding Overwatch is that there's a good chance at BlizzCon 2019, Blizzard will announce a new Overwatch game. This won't be a sequel or an Overwatch 2, but rather another game set within the Overwatch universe that features many of the same characters. This could be another PC and console game, but more than likely it's going to be for mobile. Now the reason for this is because of Activision's push for Blizzard to release more games more frequently. Over the past several months, we of course have seen Activision slowly take more and more control over Blizzard and how they function, so it seems basically inevitable that they'll take one of Blizzard's currently most popular IPs and try to get them to put out more titles for it so they can, of course, make more money. Naturally, the Overwatch player base and fans will be incredibly skeptical of this new title which is announced, but most people will find the game to actually be pretty decent for what it's worth once it eventually releases in mid to late 2020. And finally, coming to December, Winter Wonderland 2019 starts, and it's going to be just like Summer Games and Halloween Terror in that it brings back the same old game modes and just some new skins. On top of that, Jeff and friends will come back for yet another Yule log stream, but otherwise it'll be quiet for the most part until the end of the year. And there you go, these have been my thoughts, predictions, estimations, and whatnot regarding what we can expect over the next 12 months throughout the year of 2019. coming. There were a few other things that we could end up seeing which can't really be pinned down to an exact month, such as the introduction of a roll queue, which honestly is still pretty 50-50 whether or not it's even going to end up happening at all. And as for things like balance changes with heroes, that's going to be too difficult to pin down this far in advance. In the immediate future, I would not be surprised to see some small changes to McCree, who's currently pretty dominant, and of course the introduction of the 3 new heroes is going to change everything wildly to a degree which we simply can't speculate about at this point in time. As you can tell, I'm not too optimistic about the story taking any great strides in 2019, although it is possible we'll start to see the return of comics more than just during the Archives event. However, that is not something I would get my hopes up for because it seems kind of unlikely in my opinion. Overall, despite how pessimistic some of these predictions may have sounded, I'm actually quite excited to see what ends up happening this coming year. I think there's a very good chance that Blizzard will surprise us with some new things that I'm just simply unable to predict at this point in time, and overall I am quite optimistic about Overwatch going in a good direction. I think the game is still gradually improving, perhaps not at the rate it should be, but the fear of Overwatch dying anytime soon I still think is quite ludicrous, and there's definitely going to be a ton of new content to enjoy as time goes on. But these have just been my thoughts about the Overwatch 2019 calendar, so let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you agree with some of the predictions I made, or do you have some different ideas about what we could end up seeing? Either way, be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and share it with a friend if you really liked it. Subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and hit up the bell to never miss any of my future Overwatch content. This is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great year.